Welcome to the Thoughtful Leader podcast. My name is Ben Brearley. I'm a leadership coach and the founder of Thoughtful Leader. The Thoughtful Leader podcast is all about short, sharp leadership advice because thoughtful leadership is good leadership. Welcome to episode 213 of the Thoughtful Leader podcast. In this episode, I'm going to give you some tips, or more specifically, some questions to ask before you send your people on training. Because training is one of those things that everyone thinks is great to send people on and they spend a lot of money on it, but sometimes leaders don't really see the benefits of that. So in this episode, I'll look at some questions you can ask yourself to see whether training is going to be worthwhile for your people and how you can get the most out of it rather than just spending money with no reward. Okay, let's get into the episode right now. Obviously, training team members can be an excellent way to improve their skills. Leaders do need to be wary though of just sending people on training courses and hoping they learn something. Training courses can be very expensive, so you need to get some value for the money you're spending. And some leaders consider training to be a bit of a tick-the-box exercise. That is, you send people off, they take a course, and then the job is done. But it's really not that simple. So in this episode, I'm going to take a look at some key questions to ask yourself before you send your people on that fancy training course. And this will help set you and your team members up for success. So to start with, let's look at how to assess whether the training was actually worth the time and money in the first place. And one of the popular models used to consider this was created by Professor Donald Kirkpatrick, and it is appropriately called the Kirkpatrick model. And the model consists of 4 levels. The lowest level is the reaction of participants taking the training. This involves considering whether people enjoyed the training, found it useful, and generally had a favourable experience. By the way, think of these levels as a pyramid going from bottom to top. So the first one was reaction. Did they enjoy it? Did they find it useful? And did they have a favourable experience? The second level of the pyramid is learning, which looks at whether participants actually learned the required skills, behaviours, or gained the attitudes that were supposed to come out of the training. Now, the third very important level is that of behaviour. Did the team members actually change their behaviour based on the training, or are they just doing what they did before? And lastly, the results level is important for measuring whether there are any tangible results that improved after the training. For example, if you sent people on a specific safety training course, did the number of those particular safety incidents decrease? The last level there is perhaps the hardest to assess because it involves having the right metrics in place to evaluate success or failure in your organisation. Ideally, you want to reach the top level of that pyramid. So that is, you want to be able to measure that the training has had a positive impact on some part of your team or organisation. Now, if you stopped at level 1, which was the reaction level, the first level, your team members might have had a fun time, eaten a nice lunch and enjoyed themselves, but weren't able or willing to apply any of their learning. And I can tell you now that this is a very common occurrence. People go on training, they have fun and they skip work for a day, but then they come back and they don't necessarily apply that to the workplace. Now, reaching level 2 is better because at least your people will have learned new skills, but if you stop there, they haven't applied any of them to the workplace. Now, reaching level 3 is even better because at least your people have changed their behaviour. They are doing new things as a result of the training, which hopefully led to positive outcomes. So as an example, you might send people on time management training. So ideally, they'll be more productive, efficient, they might push back, and they might say no, prioritize their workload better, all these sorts of things. So at level 1, they've had a good time at the training and they've enjoyed themselves. Then at level 2, they've learned new skills and techniques of prioritization or managing time or saying no to stakeholders maybe. And then level 3, people have actually changed their behavior. So you might notice someone prioritizing their workload, negotiating with you, the boss, on what's most important for them, or maybe they're even blocking time in their calendar to work on certain projects that they need to complete. So that would be an example of reaching level 3 in a time management context. Now, achieving the benefits of training can't really be left up to the team members themselves in my experience. They need the support of their leaders to make it happen. So recently I ran a time management training course, and at the end I ran a session asking the participants what would stop them from implementing the tools or techniques to improve their situation with regard to time management. Now, the 3 top responses included lack of support from the manager or the team in implementing the changes. The second one was falling into old habits, and lack of self-discipline was another one. So this tells me that to see results from training team members, we need to support them to change their behavior and then hold them accountable for making the change. Without these 2 ingredients, there is a good chance that the training will be a waste of time and money. And while these 2 factors won't guarantee success, it will provide the team member with a fighting chance to make a change that helps them and the team, and therefore you. So let's look at these 3 questions that I suggest asking before you start sending team members on training. And these questions are based on those ingredients I just mentioned on leadership support and accountability. So let's look into them right now. The first question is the training relevant to the team member's current or future role? That sounds very simple. Is the training relevant? If the training is relevant to the team member's current role, then there's a good chance they'll be able to use the skills when they return. Perhaps it could be that the training is relevant to something the team member wants to do in the future though, and this can also be okay as long as the future goal is not too far away. Otherwise, the skills and knowledge are likely to be forgotten before they can be put into practice. Now, you might think this is quite an obvious question, but it's a very important one. And I often speak to people who arrive at a training course because they thought it looked interesting. While it's nice to be interested in something, this isn't necessarily going to help the team member, the team, or the organization. So instead of letting team members pick from a big list of training courses based solely on their preference, be sure to question the role relevance of the training. This will improve the chances of new skills and knowledge actually being applied in the workplace. The second question to ask is, will the team member have an opportunity to use the skills or knowledge they learn? So even if the training is relevant, there's no guarantee that it will be used effectively, and that's why it's important for leaders to provide opportunities for their people to use what they've learned. If the new skills or knowledge can be used directly in the team member's role, then you need to set clear expectations about how that should happen. Now, this often starts with the team member telling you what they learned. Have them sit down with you or the team and present what was covered in the training and what they thought they could use. Find out what they think is most useful and what they think they can reasonably apply, and then find a way to support them in doing it. Now, this could be through a new improvement project or modifying a team process to incorporate new techniques, or simply by providing feedback about how they're doing if the training related to softer skills that aren't necessarily so easy to measure or see. So for example, if your team member went to a time management course and they learned some new delegation skills, you might seek feedback from the people they delegate to see how it's going. And one piece of advice for you, if you don't want your team members pushing back on you or negotiating their workload, it's best that you don't send them on a time management course in the first place. That is something that I see constantly happening. Leaders tell their people they need to be better at time management, but often the bosses are the ones hammering people with too much work. So food for thought there. Okay, and the third question I recommend you ask is, how will you hold the team member accountable for demonstrating what they learn? And this is related to obviously that key ingredient of accountability. You need to hold the team member accountable for putting in practice what they learn. This is not only for the good of the team and the training budget, of course, but also for the team member too. Sometimes team members can find it hard to apply new skills in the workplace, especially those that involve being assertive or changing their behavior in a way that may be a change for others. So if you can identify specific ways to hold your people accountable for implementing the training knowledge, you're more likely to see them actually doing it. It's no good leaving your people to do it on their own. They need your support, and you need to get your money's worth. So some examples of how to hold people accountable include checking in with them for a progress update, or you might measure some sort of metric based on implementing the training outcomes, or maybe you can get them to deliver a presentation to the team about the changes they've made since they returned from the training. You might also enlist the support of a coach to help your team member make a change. Some training companies include coaching sessions as part of the training or following its completion. And if this is an option, I suggest you take it, as this can make a huge difference to help people put what they learn into practice. Because what actually happens in many training courses is the content is relatively generalized because they're dealing with a wide spectrum of potential people coming to the training. So coaching can help people put that into an organizational context which is specific to the employee who is going to be having to use the material that they've just learned. So it's very easy to get a poor outcome from training if you aren't careful, so ask yourself those questions before you commit. And those questions again were, is the training relevant to the team member's current or future role? Second, will the team member have an opportunity to use the new skills or knowledge? And third, how will you hold the team member accountable for demonstrating what they learn? Now, any reputable trainer and training company would rather that their training makes a real difference to your people and your organization. And I do work for different training companies, and sometimes I will refuse to deliver certain training that I don't think is good in terms of the course material, or if I think the client doesn't have a clear idea about what they want to get out of the training, because I think that is a massive waste of time. It's also a problem for my credibility if I stand up training people and it ends up being useless. So you can't leave training decisions up to the team member by themselves. They need your support to make sure the benefits of the training are realized. So I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Have you come up with any good ways to make sure training is used effectively in your organization? Let me and all the other thoughtful leaders out there know in the comments on the show notes page, thoughtfulleader.com/213. And while you're at it, if you like this episode or the podcast in general, I'd appreciate it if you could leave a positive review on your podcast app of choice. It helps me get the word out and spread the word of thoughtful leadership, because that's what we need more of in the world. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Keep up the thoughtful leadership and take care of your team and yourselves, and I'll be back next week.